Widowed mother accepted Indigenous cabin as payment, but never imagined what was inside. Jennifer Mitchell was out of options when the offer came to her. Widowed for 6 months, with 4 young children to raise and debts piling up, she had spent the last 3 months caring for grandmother Dorothy, an Indigenous elder respected in the Springfield region of Illinois. When the family offered one of the village's traditional cabins as payment for her dedicated care, Jennifer hesitated. It was an unusual proposal, but necessity spoke louder than pride. Her children needed a roof over their heads, and the rent for their house in the city was 3 months overdue. "Are you sure you want to give me this cabin?" Jennifer asked Mrs. Margaret, the daughter of the late grandmother Dorothy. "Of course, dear. You cared for my mother with such tenderness in her final moments. It's the least we can do. The cabin is empty anyway, and your children will have space to play." Jennifer looked at her 4 children. Tyler, 9 years old, was the oldest and already trying to take on responsibilities that weren't his. Emily Rose, 7, still cried for her father every night. The twins, Ryan and Evan, just 5 years old, barely understood what had happened to Daddy. "Mommy, are we going to live in an Indian house?" asked Emily Rose, curious. "Don't say it like that, sweetie. We're going to live in a house in the Indigenous community. It's different." Mrs. Margaret smiled understandingly. She understood the family's difficult situation and knew Jennifer was a good woman. During the months caring for grandmother Dorothy, she had shown patience, dedication, and great affection. The cabin is in the quietest part of the village. It has running water and electricity. My late husband built it about 15 years ago, but we never really got to use it properly. It'll be much better than sitting abandoned. The next day, Jennifer loaded the few belongings she had managed to save after the loss of her husband, Brandon. He had died in a construction work accident, and the company had not taken any responsibility. Since then, she had survived by doing domestic work and caring for the elderly. The cabin was more spacious than Jennifer had imagined. Built in the traditional style of the region but with modern adaptations, it had 2 bedrooms, a large living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. What caught her attention most were the colorful fabrics covering all the interior walls. "How pretty, Mommy!" exclaimed Tyler, running from one corner to another. "Be careful not to get anything dirty, son. This house isn't really ours." "Of course it is, Mrs. Jennifer," intervened Mrs. Margaret, who had come to help with the move. "From today on, this is your and the children's home. I just ask that you respect our customs here in the village." That night, after the children fell asleep, Jennifer stood admiring the fabrics on the walls. They were beautiful handmade works with traditional patterns and vibrant colors. But something bothered her. It seemed like the fabrics were hiding something behind them. The next morning, while organizing the few pieces of furniture she had managed to bring, Emily Rose came running to her. "Mommy, there are some things stuck to the wall under these cloths." "What do you mean, sweetie?" "I was playing hide-and-seek with the boys and I bumped into the wall. The cloth came loose a little, and I saw some things nailed up." Jennifer approached the wall her daughter pointed to. Carefully, she lifted a corner of the fabric and was faced with something that took her breath away. They were photographs. Dozens of them, nailed directly to the wooden wall. Her heart raced when she recognized a familiar face in the images. It was Brandon, her late husband, smiling next to people she had never seen in her life. He was wearing expensive business clothes, very different from the simple t-shirts and jeans he wore at home. "My God," she murmured, removing more fabrics to see better. There were at least 30 photographs, all showing Brandon at social events, meetings, and parties that seemed to be for important people. In some images, he was talking to men in suits. In others, he appeared to be toasting with champagne glasses. "Mommy, why is Daddy in these pictures?" asked Tyler, who had approached curiously. Jennifer didn't know what to say. During their 8 years of marriage, Brandon had always been a simple man who worked in construction and came home covered in drywall compound and paint. He never showed interest in social events, nor had elegant clothes in the closet. "Emily Rose, have you ever seen Daddy wearing these nice clothes?" she asked her eldest daughter. The girl thought for a moment before answering. "I remember some nights when Daddy would leave all dressed up when he thought we were sleeping. He said he was going to work, but it was late at night." Jennifer felt the floor shake beneath her feet. Brandon sometimes worked at night doing small repairs at clients' houses, But these photographs showed a world completely different from the one she knew. At that moment, she heard voices from outside. It was Mrs. Margaret, accompanied by two men Jennifer didn't recognize. "Mrs. Jennifer, may I come in?" shouted Mrs. Margaret. "Of course, come in." When they saw the photographs displayed on the wall, the three visitors exchanged worried glances. "Oh, you found the old photos," said one of the men, trying to sound casual. "They're just mementos we forgot to take from here." Jennifer noticed the nervousness in his voice. It was Derek, Mrs. Margaret's son, a man around 40 years old whom she had seen a few times during the months she cared for his grandmother. "Mementos of whom?" asked Jennifer, pointing to one of the photos where Brandon appeared clearly. "Oh, these were my father's. He knew a lot of people around here." But Jennifer wasn't naive. In one of the photographs, she managed to identify a plaque in the background with a date just 3 months before Brandon's accident. That couldn't be a coincidence. "Excuse me, I need to talk to you about these photos," said Jennifer, trying to stay calm in front of the children. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." Derek approached her with a forced smile. "Mrs. Jennifer, these photos are old. My father knew a lot of people in the region. It's normal to have photos like this." "But this here is my husband," insisted Jennifer, pointing to Brandon in one of the images. "It must just be a coincidence. You know how it is. Sometimes people look alike." Jennifer knew Brandon better than anyone. That smile, the small scar on his forehead, the way he kept his left hand in his pocket when he was nervous. It was him, without a doubt. "Can you explain to me what my husband was doing at these meetings?" The second man, who hadn't introduced himself yet, stepped forward. He was younger, around 30, with sun-tanned skin. "Ma'am, I'm Brian. I work with land issues here in the region. Sometimes we organize meetings with people from various communities to discuss development projects. It's possible your husband participated in some." "Development projects?" Brandon never told me about that. "Men don't always talk about work at home," replied Mrs. Margaret, trying to ease the situation. But Jennifer sensed something was wrong. The tension in the air was palpable, and the explanations didn't make sense. Brandon was a bricklayer. He had no connection to land issues or development projects. After the visitors left, taking some of the photographs with the excuse that they were family documents, Jennifer felt uneasy. She needed answers. The following afternoon, while the children played outside, she decided to look for more clues in the cabin. It was then, while moving a heavy table in the living room, that she discovered one of the floorboards was loose. Under the wooden floor, wrapped in plastic, was a thick envelope. Inside, she found documents that made her world collapse once again. They were land purchase and sale contracts, all signed by Brandon with surprisingly high amounts. What shocked her most was discovering that Brandon had brokered the sale of several properties in the region, earning commissions that added up to more money than he would make in 2 years of work in construction, and she knew nothing about it. "How is this possible?" she murmured, flipping through the documents. There were contracts dated from up to a year before the accident. Brandon had been involved in this business for a long time, and she had never suspected. This explained the nighttime outings that Emily Rose had mentioned, and also the extra money that sometimes appeared at home, which he justified as side jobs. That night, after the children fell asleep, Jennifer went out for a walk through the village. She needed to think, to organize her thoughts. It was then that she met Mr. Harold, an Indigenous elder over 70 years old, who was sitting in front of his house smoking a pipe. "Good evening, Mr. Harold." "Good evening, Mrs. Jennifer. How are you adapting to our community?" "Well, thank you. May I sit for a bit?" "Of course, make yourself comfortable." Jennifer hesitated before asking, but the need to understand spoke louder. "Mr. Harold, did you know my husband Brandon?" The old man stopped smoking and looked at her carefully. "Yes, I did. He came here regularly over the last 2 years." "What did he come to do?" "To talk about land, Mrs. Jennifer. Your husband knew a lot about these matters. He helped many people here resolve documentation problems." Jennifer felt a knot in her stomach. Brandon had never shown any knowledge about legal or land issues. How was it possible that he was involved in this without her knowing? How did he help, Mr. Harold? Ah, he knew important people in the city. Politicians, lawyers, people with influence. When someone here needed to resolve something related to land, he would take them to talk to these people. And did that work? Mr. Harold paused for a long time before answering. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. There were cases that didn't end very well. How so? Look, Mrs. Jennifer, your husband was a good man, but sometimes he got into complicated situations. Not always did the people he knew in the city have good intentions. Jennifer thanked him for the conversation and returned home even more confused. The next day she decided to look for some of the people mentioned in the documents. The first name on the list was Benedict Harrison, who according to the papers had sold a plot of land through Brandon's mediation. Benedict lived in a simple house on the outskirts of Springfield. He was a middle-aged man with a tired expression and hands calloused from hard work. "Did you know my husband Brandon Mitchell?" Jennifer asked after introducing herself. The man's expression changed immediately. "I did, and I wish I hadn't." "Why?" "Ma'am, with all due respect to your loss, but your husband brought me a lot of trouble." "What kind of trouble?" Benedict invited her in and offered coffee. While preparing the drink, he began to tell his version of the facts. "I had a piece of land I inherited from my father. It wasn't big, but it was mine. One day your husband showed up here saying he knew a buyer who would pay very well for it. And you sold it." "I sold it, but I only received half of the promised money. Your husband said the rest would come after they resolved some problems with the documentation." "And did it come?" "It never came. When I went looking for him, I learned about the accident. I was left without the rest of my money and without the land." Jennifer felt her legs go weak. Brandon had deceived that man, and she had been living with money that wasn't rightfully his. "Mr. Benedict, I knew nothing about this. If I could help in any way..." "Ma'am, I'm not angry with you. I know you didn't know anything, but the truth is your husband messed with a lot of people around here, and things didn't always end well." When she left Benedict's house, Jennifer felt lost. The man she loved and respected had deceived people, caused losses, and lied to her for years. How could she have lived beside someone without truly knowing him? Back at the cabin, she found Brian, the man who had appeared with Derek the previous day. He was talking with Tyler in the yard. "Mrs. Mitchell, I need to speak with you. What are you doing here? I heard you've been looking for people, asking questions about your husband. And what if I have? I have a right to know the truth." "Of course you do, but some truths can be dangerous." Jennifer felt a shiver. There was a threat in those words. "What do you mean by that?" "Your husband got involved with influential people, folks who don't like their problems exposed. If you keep digging into these matters, you might end up in trouble." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm just warning you for your own safety and the children's." After Brian left, Jennifer was frightened. For the first time since discovering the photographs, she felt real fear, not for herself, but for her children. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about how Brandon managed to lead a double life without her noticing. She had always been an attentive, observant woman. How did she miss the signs? The next morning she decided to talk to Emily Rose in more detail. "Honey, do you remember any other strange things about Daddy?" "I remember sometimes letters would come to the house addressed to him, but with different names." "What do you mean, different names?" "Once I saw a letter for Brandon Harrison, another for Brandon Silver. I asked Daddy, and he said it was because of work." Jennifer then remembered several situations that had seemed normal at the time but now made sense. Brandon always answered the phone quickly and stepped away to talk. He received calls at odd hours. He had vague explanations about his extra jobs. She decided to go see Mr. Harold again. The elderly man received her kindly, but she noticed he was more reserved. "Mr. Harold, I need you to tell me everything you know about Brandon." "Mrs. Mitchell, sometimes it's better to let the past lie." "I can't. I found out he deceived people, caused losses. I need to understand what happened." The old Indigenous man sighed deeply before he began to speak. "Your husband showed up here about 3 years ago, said he could help our community with land issues, documentation, things like that. At first he seemed honest. And then the problem started. He promised to resolve situations, but he didn't always deliver. Some families lost money, others had legal troubles. Why didn't anyone report him? Here in the village, it's not that simple, Mrs. Mitchell. We handle things differently. Besides, your husband knew powerful people. People were afraid. Afraid of what? Retaliation. When you meddle with land and politics in this region, things can get complicated. Jennifer understood that Brandon was involved in something much bigger and more dangerous than she had imagined. He wasn't just a construction worker doing side jobs. He was in the middle of schemes involving politicians and influential people. Mr. Harold, did Mrs. Margaret know about all this? She did. That's why she offered you the cabin. It was a way to try to make up for the problems your husband caused for our community. That revelation was a punch to Jennifer's stomach. Mrs. Margaret's generosity wasn't just kindness. It was guilt. When she returned home, she found Derek waiting for her in the backyard. He seemed nervous. "Mrs. Jennifer, we need to talk." "About what?" "About the questions you've been asking. This could bring trouble for everyone." "What kind of trouble?" "Your husband was involved in sensitive business. If you keep digging into this, you might attract unwanted attention." "Attention from whom?" Derek hesitated before answering. "From people who prefer to keep certain things buried along with those responsible." The phrase had a sinister tone that frightened Jennifer. She was beginning to understand that Brandon hadn't just deceived ordinary people. He was involved with dangerous people. "What do you want me to do?" "Stop asking questions and live your life in peace with the children." "And if I don't stop?" "It would be better for everyone if you did." After Derek left, Jennifer locked herself in the house with the children. For the first time since losing her husband, she felt real fear. But she also felt anger. Anger at Brandon for putting her in this situation. Anger at herself for being so naive. That afternoon, while the children played in the backyard, she overheard a conversation between Tyler and Emily Rose that caught her attention. "Do you remember that time Dad came home all nervous?" asked Emily Rose. "Which time?" "The one where he locked himself in the bedroom talking on the phone and then burned some papers in the backyard." Jennifer approached her children. "When was that?" "About 4 months ago, Mom. Dad came home running, locked the door and kept pacing back and forth," said Tyler. "And then he burned some papers?" "Yes. He made a little fire in the backyard and burned everything. When we asked what it was, he said they were old papers that weren't useful anymore," Emily Rose added. Jennifer remembered that day. Brandon had said he was burning accumulated trash, and she hadn't paid it any mind. Now she understood he was destroying evidence of something. That night, after the children fell asleep, Jennifer made a decision. She couldn't keep living in uncertainty. She needed to discover the whole truth, regardless of the consequences. She went to the spot where Brandon had burned the papers and started to dig. Even knowing she probably wouldn't find anything, she had to try. To her surprise, she found some pieces of paper that hadn't burned completely. Piecing the fragments together under the moonlight, she managed to identify a few words: project, eminent domain, compensation, and a name that intrigued her: Attorney General's Office. Brandon was involved in land eminent domain issues, and apparently there was something that worried him so much he needed to destroy documents. Something related to the Attorney General's office. The next morning, Jennifer decided to go into town to look for information. She left the children with a trusted neighbor and took the first bus to Springfield. In the city center, she looked for the property registry office. With the names she had seen on the documents, she managed to get some information about the transactions Brandon had brokered. The clerk, a middle-aged man, was helpful. "These documents you're looking for are from transactions that happened in the last 2 years. Some were questioned later." "Questioned why?" "Irregularities in the documentation, problems with the origin of the titles, things like that. The Attorney General's office even investigated some cases." Jennifer's heart raced. Brandon was being investigated by the Attorney General's office. "Is that investigation still ongoing?" "I couldn't say. That information is confidential, but I can confirm there were questions about the legitimacy of several of these transactions." When she left the registry office, Jennifer was certain that Brandon was involved in something illegal. It wasn't just bad deals or broken promises, it was fraud. Back at the village, she found Mrs. Margaret on the porch of her house. The woman seemed to be waiting for her. "Mrs. Jennifer, I heard you went to town. I went to take care of some things." "What kind of things?" "Related to my husband." Mrs. Margaret signaled for her to sit down. "My dear, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "Your husband was involved in things he shouldn't have been. When my mother was sick, she told me some things she had discovered." "What things?" "Brandon was helping people forge land deeds. Entire families lost their properties because of it." Jennifer felt the world spin. Brandon wasn't just dishonest, he was a criminal. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I wanted to protect you and the children. But now that you're digging into this, you need to know the truth." "What truth?" "Brandon found out he was going to be arrested. That's why he was so nervous these last few months. The accident that took his life happened when he was running away." The revelation hit Jennifer like a bolt of lightning. The accident hadn't been a chance event. Brandon was running from the police. "Running where?" "We don't know. We only know he left home that morning, desperate, and ended up crashing his car on the curve of the road." Jennifer began to cry, not from sadness over the loss, but from anger at all the lies she had lived with. The man she loved, the father of her children, had completely deceived her. "Mrs. Margaret, how many people were harmed because of him?" "Many, my dear. Entire families lost their land. Some are still paying the price for the scams he pulled." "And what can I do to help?" "Nothing, my dear. The damage is already done. What's important now is for you to protect your children and start your life over." But Jennifer couldn't accept staying idle. There were people who had lost everything because of Brandon, and she was living with money that wasn't rightfully hers. "Mrs. Margaret, where is the money Brandon made from these scams?" "We don't know. He never said where he kept the money." That night, Jennifer searched every corner of the cabin looking for more clues. It was then, while examining the documents she had found under the floorboards more carefully, that she discovered something interesting. There was a hand-drawn map on the back of one of the contracts. The map showed the property where they used to live, with an X marked in the backyard near the mango tree. Brandon had buried something there. The next day, Jennifer took the children and went to the old house. The new tenant allowed her into the backyard to get some plants she had forgotten. Digging at the spot indicated on the map, she found a metal box buried just over a meter deep. Inside the box was a considerable amount of cash and a list with names and amounts. The list contained the names of all the people Brandon had swindled and how much they were owed. It was as if he had made an inventory of his victims. Jennifer stared at that money, not knowing what to do. It was more than she would earn in 5 years of work, but she knew it wasn't hers. It belonged to the people Brandon had deceived. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. That night, Jennifer made a decision that would change her life forever. She would seek out each person on the list and return the money that was rightfully theirs. The first person on the list was Mr. Benedict, the man who had lost his plot of land. When Jennifer showed up at his house with an envelope containing the missing money, he couldn't believe it. "Mrs. Jennifer, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do, Mr. Benedict. This money is yours, not mine. But you have 4 children to raise. I'll raise them with my own work, not with stolen money." Benedict began to cry. That money represented years of lost work, dreams that had been destroyed. "May God bless you, Mrs. Jennifer. You are a woman of character." The second person on the list was Mrs. Dorothy, a widow who had lost a plot of land where she raised chickens. When Jennifer handed her money to her, the reaction was similar. "My dear, your husband took everything I had. I couldn't even afford feed for the chickens. You are giving me back my dignity." With each person Jennifer sought out, the story repeated itself. Families destroyed, dreams shattered, simple people who trusted Brandon and were deceived. And now she was managing to repair at least part of the damage. But not everyone reacted well to her initiative. When she looked for the third name on the list, an older man named Derek, not Mrs. Margaret's son, but another Derek, he was suspicious. "Why are you doing this?" "Because it's the right thing to do." "Don't give me that soft talk. Nobody does anything for free in this world. What do you want in return? I don't want anything. I just want to fix my husband's mistake. Mistake? Your husband was a criminal, ma'am, and you probably knew all about it. I knew nothing. I don't believe it. How does a woman live with a man and not know he's a thief? The accusation hurt Jennifer, but she understood the man's anger. She handed over the money and left without argument. When she returned to the village that day, she found Brian waiting for her again. But this time he wasn't alone. There were 2 men in suits with him, clearly not from the area. Mrs. Jennifer, these are Mr. Roger and Mr. Frank. They would like to speak with you. About what? About the activities you've been undertaking, replied Roger, the taller of the 2. What activities? We know you found documents and money that belonged to your husband. So what? That material could compromise important people. It would be better for everyone if it disappeared. Are you asking me to hide crimes? We're asking you to be smart, replied Frank. Your husband got involved in things that were bigger than him. You don't want to get into the same mess. And if I refuse? That would be a shame. Your children are very beautiful. The veiled threat to the children made Jennifer's blood run cold. Now she understood the kind of people Brandon was involved with. What exactly do you want? We want all the documents and the remaining money. In return, we guarantee your safety and the children's. What if I've already spent the money? We know you haven't, Mrs. Jennifer. You've been returning money to several people. Admirable but unnecessary. Jennifer realized she was being watched. These men knew exactly what she was doing. I need to think. You have until tomorrow to decide. After that, the situation could get complicated for everyone. After the men left, Jennifer locked herself in the house with the children. She was terrified, but also determined not to give in to blackmail. During the night, she heard strange noises around the cabin. There were footsteps, low voices, the sound of someone rummaging through things outside. She couldn't sleep, staying awake, protecting her children. The next morning, she discovered someone had turned over the yard looking for something. There were holes dug in several places, clear signs they were looking for the money. "Mommy, why are there these holes in the yard?" asked Ryan, one of the twins. It must have been the animals, son. But the children weren't foolish. Tyler, the oldest, sensed something was wrong. "Mommy, are you scared?" "No, son. Why do you ask?" "Because you didn't sleep last night. I heard you walking around the house." Jennifer had decided she could no longer put the children at risk. She needed to make a decision, even if it meant giving in to the criminals. But before giving up, she decided to talk to Mrs. Margaret. Maybe she could help in some way. "Mrs. Margaret, I have a serious problem." "What happened, dear?" Jennifer told her about the men who had shown up, the threats, the noises during the night. "Those people are truly dangerous," confirmed Mrs. Margaret. "They control a lot of business in the region." "What can I do?" "Dear, sometimes it's better to give in than to risk the children's lives. But that means the people Brandon deceived will never get what is rightfully theirs. Life is more important than money, dear." Jennifer knew Mrs. Margaret was right, but she felt that giving in would be betraying all the people who had been harmed by Brandon. That afternoon, while walking through the village trying to organize her thoughts, she met a man who would completely change her perspective on the situation. It was Joseph Charles, a lawyer from Springfield who was visiting the village to resolve issues related to land demarcation. When he learned of Jennifer's situation, he offered to help. "Ma'am, what these men are doing is a crime. Threats, intimidation, this has to be reported. But they said they know important people, that they can harm me." "They probably do. But that doesn't mean they're untouchable. There is justice in this country. And if they hurt my children, that's exactly why we need to stop them. If you give in now, they'll keep doing this to other people." Joseph Charles explained that there was a witness protection program that could guarantee her and the children's safety while the case was investigated. "But I'm not a witness to anything. I didn't know my husband was involved with these people. You have documents and information that can help dismantle the scheme. That makes you an important witness." Jennifer spent the whole night thinking about the lawyer's proposal. On one side, there was the immediate safety of giving in to the threats. On the other, the possibility of achieving justice and helping prevent other people from being harmed. The next morning she made her decision. She sought out Joseph Charles and agreed to cooperate with the authorities. "But first, I want to finish returning the money to the people on the list. It could be dangerous. It's a risk I need to take. These people suffered because of my husband. I have a moral obligation to repair the damage." Joseph Charles agreed to accompany her on the final deliveries. With his presence, Jennifer felt safer to seek out the remaining people on the list. The fourth person was Mr. Raymond, a farmer who had lost a small plot where he grew corn and beans. When Jennifer arrived at his property, she found a family in a very precarious situation. "Mr. Raymond?" "Yes, that's me. My name is Jennifer Mitchell. I'm the widow of Brandon Mitchell." The man's expression immediately changed to anger. "What do you want here?" "I came to return the money my husband took from you." Mr. Raymond fell silent for a long time, processing the information. "You said return?" "That's right. I found a list with the names of the people he deceived and the amount each one was owed." "And why would you do that?" "Because it's the right thing to do." Mr. Raymond began to cry. He explained that after losing the plot, his family went through many hardships. They had to move to a rented house in the city. He started working as a day laborer. His children had to stop studying to help support the household. "This money will change our lives, Mrs. Jennifer. We'll be able to buy another piece of land, smaller but our own." The fifth person on the list was Mrs. Louise, an elderly lady who had lost a house she intended to leave as an inheritance for her children. When Jennifer found her, she was selling sweets in the square in Springfield to survive. "Mrs. Louise?" "Yes, dear. I'm Jennifer Mitchell, widow of Brandon Mitchell." "Oh, you're the wife of that wretched man who robbed me. I came to return the money he took from you." Mrs. Louise dropped the sweets she was arranging. "How?" "I found the money he had saved and a list with the names of the people he harmed. Your name is on the list." "My dear, I thought I would never see this money again. This money is from the sale of my house. It was all I had in life." When she handed the envelope to Mrs. Louise, Jennifer saw dignity return to the lady's eyes. It was as if she was recovering not just the money, but her faith in humanity. There were still 3 names left on the list, but when Jennifer tried to look for the 6th, she discovered the person had died of grief a few months after losing his land. The family confirmed the gentleman had fallen into a deep depression after the scam and never recovered. Jennifer gave the money to the widow, who explained that her husband had lost the will to live after discovering he had been deceived. He repeated every day that he was a fool for trusting that man. He stopped eating, stopped leaving the house. He wasted away until he couldn't take it anymore. The revelation hit Jennifer deeply. Brandon hadn't just stolen money. He had destroyed a person's life. The weight of guilt, even knowing she was not responsible for her husband's actions, was almost unbearable. The 7th person on the list was Michael, a young man who had sold a piece of land to get money to get married. When Brandon disappeared with part of the payment, the wedding was cancelled and the fiancée left him. "I lost everything because of your husband," Michael said when Jennifer found him. "The woman I loved, the plans I had for the future, my trust in people. I can't return those things, but I can return the money. The money won't bring my fiancée back, but it will help me start over." The 8th and final person on the list was an entire family. The brothers Charles and Martin had sold a piece of land they inherited from their parents to split the money, but they only received a small part of the agreed amount. When Jennifer looked for them, they had been fighting for months because of the situation. Each blamed the other for having trusted Brandon. "Are you Charles and Martin?" "We are. What do you want?" "I'm the widow of Brandon Mitchell. I came to return the money he owed you." The brothers looked at each other in disbelief. "Is this serious?" "Completely serious." When they received the money, the brothers hugged and apologized to each other. Brandon had almost destroyed the relationship between them, but now they could reconcile. With all the deliveries made, Jennifer had returned almost all the money Brandon had stolen. Only a small amount remained, which she decided to use to start over with the children. But the problems were far from over. The day after the last deliveries, Brian showed up at her house again, this time visibly irritated. You've made a huge mistake, Mrs. Mitchell. I did what was right. You returned money to people who will talk, who will confirm details about your husband's dealings. Now everyone knows those dealings really happened. And what's the problem? The problem is that this could implicate a lot of important people, people who don't like to be implicated. Jennifer realized that by returning the money, she had inadvertently confirmed the existence of Brandon's crimes and provided evidence that could implicate his partners. What are they going to do? I don't know, Mrs. Mitchell, but you have complicated the situation a great deal. That night, Joseph Charles appeared at her home with worrying news. Jennifer, I need to get you and the children out of here immediately. Why? We've received information that there are people planning to harm you and the boys. What do you mean? You've become a problem for them. The people who got their money back are talking, confirming details of the crimes. This is hurting powerful people. Jennifer quickly packed some clothes for the children and left the village in the middle of the night, accompanied by Joseph Charles and 2 Federal Bureau of Investigation agents who had been assigned to protect her. The children didn't understand what was happening. "Mummy, why are we leaving home again?" asked Emily Rose. "It's just temporary, sweetie. We'll be back soon." But Jennifer wasn't sure if they could return. The decision to do what was right had put the whole family in danger. They were taken to a safe house in Austin, where they remained under police protection while the investigations continued. During the first few weeks, Jennifer had to repeatedly explain to the investigators everything she had discovered about Brandon. The documents she found were crucial to dismantling a corruption network involving politicians, businessmen, and public officials. "Mrs. Mitchell, the information you've provided is very important," explained the detective in charge of the case. "We're going to be able to arrest several people involved in this scheme." "And my family? Will we be safe?" "Yes, but it will take some time before you can return home." The children felt the change deeply. Tyler, the oldest, began to get aggressive, angry about the situation. "Why can't we go back to our house?" "Because it's still not safe, son." "Safe from what? What is this danger you won't explain?" Jennifer realized she could no longer hide the truth from her children. They needed to understand why their lives had been turned upside down. "Kids, sit down here. I need to tell you something." "It's about Dad, isn't it?" asked Tyler. "How do you know?" "I noticed you changed after you found those photos. And then so many strange people came to our house." Jennifer told the children, in language appropriate for their age, that Brandon was involved with bad people and that she had decided to tell the police everything to protect other families. "Was Daddy a criminal?" asked Evan, one of the twins. "Daddy did wrong things, but he wasn't a bad person. Sometimes good people make bad choices." "And are we going to hide forever?" Anna Clara wanted to know. "No, sweetie. When the police arrest the criminals, we'll be able to go home." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. 2 months passed in the safe house. The children adapted to the new routine, started attending a nearby school, made new friends. But Jennifer could see they missed their former freedom. One day, Joseph Charles brought encouraging news. "Jennifer, we've arrested most of the people involved in the scheme. Soon you'll be able to go home." "And the men who threatened me?" "Arrested. Roger and Frank were detained along with 15 other members of the organization." "And Brian?" "He was also arrested. He was one of the main organizers of the scheme in the region." Jennifer felt an enormous relief. They could finally go home. "And the village? Can I go back there?" "Yes, you can. Mrs. Margaret sent word that they're waiting for you and miss you." The following week, Jennifer and the children returned to the village. The reception was warm. Mrs. Margaret prepared a party to celebrate the family's return. "Mrs. Mitchell, you are a heroine," said Mr. Harold. "Because of your courage, many bad people were arrested." "I'm not a heroine. I just did what I thought was right." "That's exactly why you are a heroine." In the following months, Jennifer's and the children's lives began to normalize. Tyler went back to being the cheerful boy he was before. Emily Rose stopped having nightmares. The twins resumed their play. Jennifer got a job as a cook at the village school and began to rebuild her life. The money that was left over from the restitution she invested in a small community garden that benefited several families in the region. 6 months after returning home, Jennifer received a visit from some of the people to whom she had returned the money. Mr. Benedict, Mrs. Dorothy, Mr. Raymond and others came to thank her in person. "Mrs. Jennifer, you changed our life," said Mr. Raymond. "I managed to buy a small piece of land, but it's mine. My children went back to school. I'm the one who should thank you for forgiving Brandon's mistakes. You weren't to blame for his mistakes. And you proved that by returning our money when you could have kept it all." Mrs. Dorothy had resumed raising chickens and was already selling eggs in town. Mr. Benedict got a new plot of land and went back to farming. Mrs. Louise bought a small house and stopped selling sweets on the street. "You don't know how happy it makes me to see you've managed to rebuild your lives," said Jennifer. "And you, Mrs. Jennifer, how are things?" "We're well. The children are studying, I have work, and most importantly, I can sleep in peace knowing I did what was right." During the thank you party the community organized, Jennifer reflected on everything that had happened in the last few months. The discovery about Brandon had destroyed the image she had of her husband, but it had also freed her from living a lie. "Mommy, are you sad?" asked Emily Rose, noticing her mother's silence. "No, dear. I'm thinking about how our life has changed. Changed for the better? In many ways, yes. Now we know the truth, we have real friends here in the village, and you're learning the value of honesty." "I like living here," said Tyler. "The people are truly good." "Unlike Daddy, right, Mummy?" added Ryan with the typical sincerity of children. "Daddy wasn't bad, son. He just made poor choices. But you can choose to be different." 1 year after returning to the village, Jennifer had become a respected leader in the community. Her courage in confronting the criminals and her honesty in repairing the damage caused by her husband earned her admiration and trust. She began to help other families in the region with legal matters, advising them on their rights and connecting them with honest lawyers like Joseph Charles, who became a great friend of the family. "Mrs. Jennifer, you've become our unofficial lawyer," joked Mr. Harold. "I just want to help, so no one else has to go through what we went through." "You learned a lot about these legal issues because of your husband's situation, didn't you?" "I learned by doing. And I realized how important it is for people to know their rights so they aren't deceived. The community decided to create a community center where Jennifer offered basic guidance on legal rights, especially related to land and property. Joseph Charles came once a month to give more technical talks. The children grew up in the village, learned about the indigenous culture, developed respect for nature and for their elders. Tyler became a responsible boy and protector of his younger sisters. Emily Rose discovered a talent for crafts and helped the village women with their handiwork. "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to help people like you do," said Emily Rose one day. "And how do you want to help?" "I want to be a lawyer to defend poor people who are deceived by the rich." The twins, Ryan and Evan, adapted perfectly to life in the village. They learned to fish in the nearby river, to identify medicinal plants, to respect local customs. 2 years after the discovery of the photographs in the cabin, Jennifer received a visit from a journalist interested in telling her story. "Mrs. Mitchell, your story can inspire other people to do what's right even when it's difficult. I don't know if my story is that special." "It is. You could have kept the money stolen by your husband, and no one would have known. But you chose to return it all and even risked your life to help justice. Any decent person would do the same. Unfortunately not, Mrs. Mitchell. That's why your story needs to be told." Jennifer agreed to give the interview, but on the condition that part of the money she received for the story would be used to improve the village school. The article was published in a major newspaper and resonated across the country. Jennifer received letters from people all over the United States, praising her attitude and sharing similar stories of courage and honesty. One of the letters that moved her the most came from a woman from rural Kentucky who had discovered her husband was involved in drug trafficking. Inspired by Jennifer's story, she decided to report her husband to the authorities, even knowing it would destroy her family. "Your story gave me the courage to do what I knew was right," the woman wrote. "Now my children can grow up knowing their mother always chose the path of honesty." 3 years after the events, Joseph Charles brought news that definitively closed that chapter of Jennifer's life. The last of those involved in the scheme was convicted today. The case is officially closed. And the compensation for the victims? Everyone will receive it. The state will reimburse those who haven't been compensated yet. That's good. Justice has finally been served. Jennifer, there's something I want to propose to you. What is it? I'm setting up an NGO to advise rural communities about their legal rights. I'd like you to be my partner. The proposal excited Jennifer. It was the chance to transform her painful experience into something positive for many other people. But I don't have a legal background. You have something more important: real experience and credibility. People trust you. The NGO Land Rights was created 6 months later, headquartered in Springfield, with branches in several rural communities in the region. Jennifer became the general coordinator, responsible for identifying communities that needed guidance and organizing educational activities. The NGO's work quickly gained recognition. Within 2 years, they had advised more than 50 communities, preventing hundreds of families from becoming victims of scams similar to those Brandon applied. "Mrs. Mitchell, you saved our community," said a community leader during one of the visits. "These men came here offering money for our land, but after your talk, no one signed anything." "You saved yourselves. I just provided the information." "Information is power, Mrs. Mitchell, and you are empowering our people." Tyler, now 15, began accompanying his mother in some of the NGO's activities. He showed a genuine interest in human rights and already talked about studying law. "Mom, was what Dad did very common?" "Unfortunately, yes, son. There are many land scams in rural America. And they always work because people don't know their rights." "Exactly. That's why our work is so important." Emily Rose, at 13, had become an excellent artisan and sold her work to help with the family budget. The twins, now 11 years old, were known in the village for their good manners and respect for their elders. On the 5th anniversary of the discovery of the photographs, the village organized a party in honor of Jennifer. It was a date that marked not only her arrival in the community, but the beginning of a transformation that benefited the entire region. "Mrs. Jennifer, in these 5 years you have become part of our family," said Mrs. Margaret during her speech. "You brought knowledge, courage, and most importantly, you showed us the value of honesty. I am the one who must thank you all for taking me in during such a difficult time. You came here looking for a roof for your children and ended up building a better future for our entire region." During the party, Jennifer received a surprise that moved her deeply. All the people to whom she had returned the money stolen by Brandon appeared to thank her in person. Mr. Benedict, now prosperous with his new property, brought produce from the garden he cultivated. "Mrs. Jennifer, these vegetables grew on the land I was able to buy with the money you returned." Mrs. Dorothy arrived with a basket of fresh eggs from her chickens. "My dear, these hens are laying thanks to your honesty." Mr. Raymond brought sacks of corn and beans from his new crop. "Mrs. Jennifer, this harvest is the fruit of the dignity you restored to my family." The widow of Mrs. Louise came to represent her mother-in-law, who had passed away the previous year, but in peace, in her own home, bought with the returned money. "My mother-in-law always said that you returned more than money. You restored her faith in human kindness." Michael, the young man who had lost his fiancée, appeared accompanied by a new wife and a small child. "Mrs. Jennifer, I was able to restart my life thanks to what you did. This is my son Brandon. I named him in honor of what I learned from this whole story." The brothers Charles and Martin came together, showing that their relationship had strengthened after receiving their money back. "You didn't just return our money," said Charles. "You returned our brotherly relationship. We were close before the problems with your husband, and we became close again after you corrected his mistakes," added Martin. That gathering represented for Jennifer the closing of a cycle. She had managed to repair all the damage caused by Brandon and transform a painful experience into strength to help other people. "You can't imagine how good it makes me feel to see that you have all rebuilt your lives," said Jennifer. "That is exactly why I decided to return the money, even knowing the risks." "You risked your life and the lives of your children for us," said Mr. Benedict. "That is priceless. Any mother would do the same to teach her children the value of honesty." "No, Mrs. Jennifer," interjected Mrs. Dorothy. "Many people would have kept the money and pretended they knew nothing. You chose the difficult path because it was the right path." During the party speeches, Tyler asked to speak on behalf of Jennifer's children. "I wanted to thank all of you for welcoming our family when we needed it most. When we discovered the truth about our father, we felt shame and fear. But you showed us that we are not responsible for the mistakes of others. My mother taught us that we can always choose to do what is right, even when it's hard. Seeing how you forgave our family and how our mother had the courage to fix our father's mistakes, I learned that honesty is worth more than any money. When I grow up, I want to be like my mother. I want to help people and always do what is right, no matter the cost." Tyler's speech moved the entire community. Emily Rose also asked to speak. "I want to especially thank the women of the village who taught me how to make crafts. I learned that honest work, even if humble, brings more satisfaction than any easy money. My mother could have kept the money my father stole from you. No one would have known, but she chose to return it all because she knew you needed it. That example is worth more than any inheritance." The twins, still too shy for speeches, handed out drawings they had made for each of the families present. The drawings showed people working happily on their land, a childish but touching way of showing they understood the meaning of their mother's restitution. Joseph Charles, who had practically become a member of the family, also spoke during the party. "Jennifer, when I met you, you were desperate, scared, not knowing what to do with the discoveries about Brandon. But you had an inner strength you didn't even realize. You could have chosen the easy path many times. You could have kept the money, you could have given in to the threats, you could have moved far away and pretended nothing happened. But you chose to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. You chose to do what was right, even risking your safety and that of your children. That is real courage. Today, 5 years later, you not only repaired the damage caused by Brandon, but you became a leader protecting hundreds of families in the region. You transformed your pain into purpose." During the party, Mrs. Margaret revealed something that deeply moved Jennifer. "Mrs. Mitchell, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it, Mrs. Margaret?" "When I offered you that cabin, I knew there were photographs on the walls." "You knew?" "I knew, and I knew you would discover the truth about your husband." "Why did you do that?" "Because we needed someone with courage and honesty to uncover the whole truth. Your arrival here wasn't a coincidence, it was providence. Our community was being threatened by the same criminals who worked with your husband. We knew if the truth didn't come out, they would keep harming people. When I saw how you cared for my mother with dedication and affection, I knew you were a person of integrity. That's why I offered the cabin, hoping you would do exactly what you did." The revelation left Jennifer speechless for a few moments. "So you used me to solve the community's problems?" "No, dear. I offered an opportunity for you to discover the truth and make your own choices. What happened afterward were your decisions." "And what if I had chosen to keep the money and run away?" "You wouldn't have. I knew your character from the months you cared for my mother. I knew you would do what was right." Jennifer understood that Mrs. Margaret had shown impressive wisdom. Instead of trying to solve the community's problems directly, she created conditions for the truth itself to come out naturally. "Mrs. Margaret, you are very wise. Living 75 years teaches you a few things, dear. One of them is that the truth always finds a way, and people of integrity always make the right choices when given the opportunity." At the end of the party, the community presented a surprise for Jennifer. They had written a song telling her story, which would be sung at village festivals, so future generations would know the example of courage and honesty she represented. The song was about a woman who came to the village seeking only a roof for her children, but discovered a painful truth about the past. Instead of running from the truth, she faced it and transformed her pain into strength to help others. The chorus said, "When life presents us with a truth hard to accept, we can choose to run from it, or we can choose to face it." Jennifer chose courage. She chose the path of honesty. She returned what was not hers and brought peace to our community. Jennifer cried upon hearing the song. She never imagined her story would be considered worthy of being remembered by future generations. "You honor me far more than I deserve," she said. I only did what any mother would do to teach her children the right values." "That is exactly why you deserve this honor," replied Mr. Harold. "Because for you, doing what's right is natural. That's how it should be for everyone." 6 years after the discovery of the photographs, Jennifer's NGO had expanded its activities to 3 states. The work of providing legal guidance to rural communities was saving hundreds of families from land-related scams. Tyler, now 17, had been accepted into a public university to study law. His dream was to become a lawyer and work defending underprivileged communities. "Mom, I want to study law because of everything we went through. I want to defend people like those Dad harmed." "Are you sure, son? It's a big responsibility." "I'm sure. I learned from you that we can turn bad experiences into strength to do good." Emily Rose, at 15, had developed a handicraft project that employed women from various villages in the region. Her work was generating income for dozens of families. "Mom, I want to expand the project to other regions. There are so many women in need of work opportunities." "How do you plan to do that?" "I want to study administration and learn how to manage social projects. That way, I can help more people." The twins, now 13, had become natural leaders among the village youth. They organized educational activities, helped the younger children with their studies, and demonstrated the values of honesty and solidarity they had learned from their mother. The transformation of the children into responsible young people committed to social justice was Jennifer's greatest victory. She had managed to turn the pain of discovering the truth about Brandon into valuable lessons for her children. One day, Joseph Charles brought a proposal that surprised Jennifer. The Department of Justice wants to create a national legal guidance program for rural communities based on the work of our NGO. They want you to coordinate the project. "Me? But I don't have sufficient technical training." "Jennifer, you have something no academic training can give: credibility and real-life experience. You understand from the inside the problems the program aims to solve." "Would it be a very large program?" "Very. It would cover the entire country. You would have a team of hundreds of professionals working under your coordination." The proposal represented a unique opportunity to transform her personal experience into public policy capable of protecting thousands of families across the United States. After much thought, Jennifer accepted the challenge. She knew it would be difficult to leave the village where she had found peace and purpose, but she understood she could help many more people on a national scale. "Mrs. Margaret, I'm going to accept the government's proposal." "That's wonderful, dear. You were born for great things. But I'm going to miss this place very much. This will always be your home, and you will always be part of our family." "And the children? How will they adapt to living in the capital?" "They will adapt. They carry within them the values they learned here. No matter where they are, they will always be people of integrity." The move to Washington was difficult at first. The children missed the freedom and simplicity of village life, but they gradually adapted to their new reality. Tyler continued his law studies at Georgetown University, where he stood out as one of the top students in his class. Emily Rose earned a scholarship to a technical school for administration and continued developing her social projects. The twins adapted well to the public school where they were enrolled and became known for their politeness and the respect they showed teachers and classmates. The National Legal Guidance Program was launched 2 years later, with Jennifer as the general coordinator. In its first year of operation, the program served over 500 communities across the country, preventing scams that could have harmed thousands of families. "Jennifer, you have accomplished something extraordinary," said the Attorney General during an award ceremony. "You turned a painful personal experience into public policy that is protecting families across the United States." "I just did what had to be done." That humility is one of your greatest qualities. You could have become bitter from the discoveries about your husband, but you chose to turn that experience into strength to help others. During the ceremony, Jennifer received a special tribute from the United States Congress. Lawmakers from all parties recognized the importance of her work for the protection of rural communities. "This woman represents the very best of the American character," said a congressman during his speech. "Courage to face the truth, honesty to do what is right, and dedication to turn personal experiences into collective benefit." Even with all the recognition, Jennifer never forgot her roots. She continued visiting the village where she had lived, kept in touch with all the people who had been harmed by Brandon, and whenever possible returned to the cabin that had been her home. Tyler graduated from law school with honors and immediately began working at the NGO founded by his mother. His first case was defending a historic freedmen's community that was being threatened by land grabbers. "Mum, we achieved a total victory in the case. The community will keep their land." "How do you feel defending people who were in the same situation as your father's victims?" "I feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose. Every person I manage to protect is a way to repair the damage he caused." Emily Rose created a national crafts cooperative that employed over 2,000 women in socially vulnerable situations. Her work had gained international recognition. "Mom, I received an invitation to present our project at the UN. "I'm so proud of you, daughter. You managed to turn a simple talent into opportunity for thousands of women. I learned from you that any experience can become strength to help others." The twins, now 18 years old, chose different paths, but were equally committed to social justice. Ryan decided to study agronomy, to help small rural producers, while Evan chose journalism to expose social injustices. 10 years after the discovery of the photographs in the cabin, Jennifer was at the peak of her career. The program she coordinated had become an international reference in rural rights protection. But amid all her professional success, she had never lost the simplicity and humility that characterized her. She continued living in a modest house, drove a simple car, and dedicated her weekends to volunteer work. "Jennifer, you could be wealthy with all the recognition you have," commented Joseph Charles during a visit. "I don't need material wealth. My wealth is in seeing families protected, communities strengthened, young people who have found purpose in life." "Don't you miss anything?" "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of life in the village, but I know I'm in the right place, doing the right work." During one of her visits to the village, Jennifer found Mrs. Margaret, now over 80 years old but still lucid and active. "Mrs. Jennifer, you became everything I imagined you would become." "Did you believe I would get this far?" "I did. From the first day I saw how you cared for my mother, I knew you were a special person. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't found those photographs. You would have found the truth another way. People like you always find the truth because they don't run from it." "And if Brandon was still alive, what would our life be like today?" "There's no use speculating, dear. Life gave us this experience so we could learn and grow. You turned a personal tragedy into a blessing for thousands of people." During this visit, Jennifer had a deep conversation with her children about the father they had lost. "Do you feel anger toward Brandon for everything we discovered?" "I don't feel anger," replied Tyler. "I feel sadness. Sadness because he chose a path that hurt many people and destroyed the trust we had in him. But I also feel gratitude," added Emily Rose. "If we hadn't discovered the truth, maybe we would have grown up thinking that lying and deceiving is normal." "He indirectly taught us the value of honesty," said Ryan. "Seeing the suffering that dishonesty caused, we learned that we never want to cause that kind of pain in others." "And you, Mom?" asked Evan. "Can you forgive Dad?" Jennifer thought for a long time before answering. "Yes, I forgave. Not what he did, but the person he was. I believe he got involved in these things gradually, started small and kept going deeper until he couldn't get out anymore. The letter we found shows he was aware of his mistakes and wanted to make things right. That gives me some peace. But mainly, I forgave because holding on to anger would only harm me. I prefer to use that energy to do good." 15 years after the events that changed her life, Jennifer received an invitation to write a book telling her story. The idea was to inspire other people facing similar dilemmas. "I don't know if my story deserves to become a book." "Yes, it does," insisted the editor. "Your story shows that it's always possible to choose to do what's right, even when it's difficult. That can inspire many people." Jennifer agreed to write the book, but with one condition. All proceeds would go to education programs in rural communities. The book, The Courage of Truth, became a bestseller and was translated into several languages. Jennifer began to be invited to give lectures all over the world, always carrying the message that honesty and the courage to do what's right can transform lives. During a lecture at a university, a student asked a question that made her reflect deeply. "Mrs. Jennifer, if you could go back in time and stop Brandon from getting involved with those people, would you do it?" The question took Jennifer by surprise. She had never considered that possibility. That's a difficult question. If I stopped Brandon from getting involved with those people, maybe our family wouldn't have gone through all that suffering. But it's also possible that I would never have discovered my inner strength, never have developed my ability to help others, and thousands of families protected by my work would be vulnerable. I believe life's difficult experiences prepare us to fulfill our purpose. If Brandon hadn't made those mistakes, maybe I would never have found my mission. So, after much reflection, I believe I wouldn't change anything, because our pain turned into strength to help others, and that gives meaning to all the suffering we went through. Jennifer's answer moved the audience. She had demonstrated a rare wisdom, the ability to find purpose in suffering. 20 years after the discovery of the photographs, Jennifer was 62 years old and preparing to retire from her government position. The program she had created was well established and running perfectly. Tyler, now 29, had become one of the most respected lawyers in the defense of rural rights. Emily Rose, at 27, ran one of the largest solidarity economy cooperatives in the country. The twins, at 25, worked together on social communication projects focused on justice. "Mom, what do you plan to do in retirement?" asked Tyler during a family dinner. "I want to go back to the village. I miss the simplicity there." "And what if you miss the work?" "I'll keep working, but as a volunteer. I want to teach children, help the elderly, contribute more directly to the community." "We can visit any time," said Emily Rose. "You can, but I want you to live your own lives. You have your own missions to fulfill." During her retirement party, Jennifer received tributes from authorities all over the world. The work she had developed protected more than 5 million people across the country. "Jennifer, you transformed a painful personal experience into public policy that protects millions of Americans," said the President of the United States during the ceremony. "Your story shows that individual honesty and courage can change society." "Thank you for your words, Mr. President, but I want to make it clear that none of this would have been possible without the support of many people, from Mrs. Margaret, who took me in when I needed it most, to Joseph Charles, who gave me legal support, and all the employees who believed in the program. Social transformation is always a collective effort. My contribution was simply making the right choices when I had the opportunity. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of Jennifer's story and from where you are watching us. Did her journey of courage and honesty touch your heart? Do you believe she made the right decisions in returning the money stolen by her husband? Share your opinion in the comments with sincere words. We will be delighted to read your point of view. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.